What if I were to tell you that having only 435 voting representatives apportioned among the 50 states is not only politically unfair, it is in fact actually illegal and unconstitutional because the Constitution specifically requires, by today's population, somewhere between 6,000 and 6,500 representatives to be apportioned among the 50 states. Hello, my name is Eugene Martin Laverne, and I'm here to provide a brief history to you today that's going to be quite shocking and eye-opening. Rest assured that everything I'm about to tell you is absolutely 100% historically true and accurate. Now, if I were to ask you how many members there are in the United States Senate, most people can answer this simple question. They could say 100. And if I were to ask you how many voting members there are in the United States House of Representatives, the sad truth is that most people really don't know. If you don't know, or even if you do, the answer happens to be 435. And if I were to follow up this question with the second question of why, the few people that pay attention to such things would give me an answer to the effect that, quote, it has something to do with the results of the population census, and that answer is about 10% accurate. The truth is somewhat complicated, but in the end is easy to understand. For our purposes here, just understand that the size of the House of Representatives has been the same, 435 voting members, since 1910, for now 110 years and counting. For context, the 1790 census, conducted during George Washington's first term, showed the national population was 3.8 million, and the first statutory apportionment of the U.S. House resulted in 105 voting members, each representing on average 37,000 people. 120 years later, in 1910, according to the census, the national population had grown and was now 92.2 million people, and each representative in the U.S. House represented on average 211,000 people. This is when the House effectively stopped growing in size and became essentially fixed at 435 voting members. Now, moving forward 100 years from 1910, after the year 2010, the census fixed the national population at approximately 308.7 million people. Yet we still have the same 435 voting members in the U.S. House that we had 100 years earlier in 1910. But now each representative in the U.S. House represented, on average, 710,000 people. The 2010 census indicates Montana had a population of 990,000, just shy of a million, and they have one representative for the entire state, whereas Wyoming, the smallest populated state in the Union, has approximately 580,000 people, and they have the same one representative for the entire state, but there's almost a 500,000 population variance between Wyoming and Montana. My home state of New Jersey had a 2010 census population of 8.8 million and was apportioned 12 representatives for an average of 732,000 people represented by each representative, which is 22,000 more, higher than the average of 710,000. California has 53 representatives, a 2010 census population of 37.25 million, which results in a ratio of just over 700,000 per representative, and that's 10,000 lower than the national average. Now, I don't know anyone presented with the actual facts, statistics, and data that thinks that the number of 435 voting representatives is really adequate for the 308.7 million people we have in the nation today. And I don't think that anyone could credibly argue that the disparity of almost 500,000 people between Wyoming and Montana is not unfair, or that the disparity between New Jersey being over the national average compared to California's 53 representatives being 10,000 below the national average, effectively 32,000 less per representative than New Jersey, is also not unfair, though in a different way. Now let that sink in. But what if I were to tell you that having only 435 voting representatives apportioned among the 50 states is not only politically unfair, it is in fact actually illegal and unconstitutional because the Constitution actually and specifically requires, by today's population, somewhere between 6,000 and 6,500 representatives to be apportioned among the 50 states. Yes, I know this sounds crazy, but it's actually the truth. I will educate you, and I will open your eyes and change your outlook on what is really wrong with the federal government and show you how it can be fixed immediately. Now, most people who got out of high school are aware of the document that's commonly referred to as the Bill of Rights. We're told in school that the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, and that they were passed by all 13 states shortly after the Constitution was enacted. And this is only somewhat true, and in context of the actual history is quite misleading. If you were to actually look at the document, two things would jump out at you. First, nowhere in the document will you see the phrase Bill of Rights anywhere. Secondly, you will see that there are 12 proposals, not the 10 we're taught about. The real First Amendment that was proposed to the United States Constitution actually changed the manner of apportioning representatives among the states from as it was in the Constitution's original Article 1 to guarantee automatic and perpetual growth in the size of the House of Representatives over time as the nation's population invariably increased. This real First Amendment was written so that over time perpetual growth in the size of the U.S. House was constitutionally guaranteed in the organic law of our country itself and was governed by not a political process, but actually a fair and objective mathematical ratio. And this was done to guarantee that there would never be a time in our future history where one representative represented and spoke on behalf of more than 50,000 people. Today, as I already said, the average is one representative for every 710,000 people with many disparities. The Founding Fathers, to be blunt, would be appalled. Had this real First Amendment been ratified by the requisite number of states, today we would have, as I indicated, between 6,000 and 6,500 members in the United States House of Representatives apportioned among the 50 states, not a mere 435. And what a very different world that would give us. The entire story of how such an important amendment, literally the real First Amendment, actually became somehow lost or forgotten, or intentionally hidden, is the subject of a book I've written titled Article the First, The Story of the Real First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Lest you think this is some superficial, inaccurate, mere pamphlet, think again. The actual book is available for purchase on barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. It is well in excess of 500 pages of detailed scholarly text, contains photographic evidence of all the documentary evidence to make the case, and has 40 pages of microprint and notes at the end to meticulously document everything. There are even footnotes to the endnotes. That's how thorough this scholarly work is. Now, obviously, I cannot distill 230 years of history, 500 plus pages of text, hundreds of photographs, and thousands of microprint-sized endnotes into just a few minutes. I will be putting out more videos and arranging a series of live Facebook events so that I can answer questions. So for now, you will either have to trust me, or you could, of course, get the book. Now, knowledge is power. You, the people, want power? You want a peaceful revolution? You want a fair political process that allows for change? You want a federal government you can participate in that is truly accountable to the people? Then stop drinking the Kool-Aid. The answer, my friends, is not in who the next president will be. The answer is who the next House of Representatives will be. I'll show you the way. Maybe you can even be one of the 6,500 from throughout the nation with an actual seat at the table of the people's power at the 117th Congress. And with this power, together we can change the country. By changing the country, maybe we can even meaningfully change the world in and for our time. This is our national truth.